We never know where life will lead us or what may hinder us along the way. But while every day can feel like one big question mark, it doesn't have to. With the right insights, strategies, and solutions from Western and Southern Financial Group, together we can look ahead to leave the unknown behind.
What's Pro Football Focus doing? Last week they had Brady. This week they got Brady.
We're literally doing it differently from everybody else.
As a matter of fact, moving forward from this point on, I will not make reference to PFF.
Do you not understand that they are that way because you're Joe Flacco?
And you just like to discredit things that people deserve credit for.
That you can't possibly be expected to defend that.
Talk about the game, Sam.
So,
who cares about what people think about us?
Yeah, I like football season, and all the things that go with
it. Welcome into the PFF NFL Podcast. Steve Palazzolo back here with Sam Monson. It's time to preview all things Week 15 in the NFL. Stumbling through it, Sam, but I'm not going to stumble through the Monkey Knife Fight read. Everybody's been hearing it. All first-time depositors over at Monkey Knife Fight that put at least $20 into their account while using the promo code PFF will receive a free PFF Edge annual subscription. That's $40 of value, Sam, for just $20, and you get the opportunity to turn that 20. Prove yourself by playing daily fantasy and prop games at one of the fastest-growing fantasy sports sites in the USA. It's Monkey Knife Fight. So go to Monkey Knife Fight, deposit your $20, use the promo code PFF. Do it today. Receive your free PFF Edge annual subscription. My suggestion, the PFF Draft Guide's coming out very, very soon. That's part of Edge Annual. So if you want to just get that for $20, this would be the time to do it. Edge Annual, Monkey Knife Fight. Also, don't forget, you can subscribe to PFF Elite Annual by using the promo code ACTION to receive the Elite subscription plus 1 year of Action Pro subscription access for just that $199.99. Action Pro is Action Network's premium subscription offering, tailor-made to make avid and new bettors better. This is a limited time offer, and that is currently only made available now through Super Bowl 55, February 7th, 2021. This offer also only applies to first-time Elite Annual subscribers. All right, Sam, let's get into all the Week 15 action. It's a full slate. We're back again with every single team playing starting Thursday Night Football. Los Angeles Chargers at the Las Vegas Raiders. You can talk now.
Sweet. Excellent. I've been waiting, biding my time, just waiting for my moment to pounce.
We want to do our reads at the beginning.
Yeah.
So everybody can hear them, and then now you're allowed. It's your turn.
Thank you. Where are we going first? Thursday night, Los Angeles Chargers.
Raiders.
Las Vegas Raiders in Vegas.
Yeah. Raiders? Whoa.
Huh.
Vegas Raiders by 3 as of record time here.
Yeah. Which seems fair, right? The Raiders have been struggling recently. They've stumbled through a few games. They've basically thrown away their chances of the playoffs more than likely. And the Chargers are still the Chargers. You know, they'll find a way to mess up on special teams or just not run a play or whatever it is they do on a weekly basis that just makes a mockery of them.
Is this an absolute shootout?
It could be, right?
The first time around, we had the Raiders win 31-26. The Chargers had that fade that wasn't. Fade for a game-winning touchdown. That looked like a game-winning touchdown, but it wasn't.
Right.
Neither defense played very well. I think we might see more of that. Or if you've already seen it, hopefully you had a nice, exciting Thursday night football game to watch. But yeah, with Derek Carr and the Raiders, got to be aggressive. Keep chucking it down the field. You know, you got to make your move here in these last few games, trying to make a playoff push. Their win probability has dwindled, however. Their playoff probability, the Raiders, has dwindled over these last few weeks due to
losing.
Yes. And look, I still, the Chargers are better than their record shows. But
are they?
Still, yeah.
Are they, though?
As a team,
like
they
at this
are.
point, are they not just a mess?
They have to be better than that. They are 4-9, but I think it'll be a decent game.
For the Raiders, if nothing else, okay, the playoffs may have gone at this point. Certainly their chances have really slipped. They just need to finish well, right? Just to prove that, okay, we had a blip in the middle. We weren't quite ready for prime time of the playoffs next year. Next year will be the year because we just had a blip. If they actually just collapsed down the second half of the season and it was, no, this team is only good in September and October, and then in the 2 more important months rolling into the playoffs, they just cease to function as an offense or as a team, that would be concerning. They obviously made a move in firing their defensive coordinator. I don't know if that's going to make any difference, but this team just needs to bounce back and show that they're actually capable of playing still.
Stat of the week last week, the Raiders pressured Phillip Rivers once.
Yeah.
One time, 3% of his dropbacks, the lowest percentage in the NFL in a game this year. So the pass rush is still an issue for the Las Vegas Raiders. Anyway, I think it'll be a good game. I think it'll be an exciting Thursday night game. Hope you enjoyed it if you already saw it. Let's get to the rest of the games this weekend, the Sunday games, and we got Saturday football this week too. So there's Saturday games. It's just football all weekend. The biggest games of the weekend, we'll start there. Kansas City Chiefs at the New Orleans Saints. Chiefs are favored by 3. There's no timetable for Drew Brees' return for the Saints. I think
sensibly.
Yes. All Sean Payton has said is we need him to be 100%. And just based off those comments, I don't know. I mean, it's not this week. I don't even know if that's next week for Brees and the Saints. And then we get into, is it week 17?
Well, particularly,
is it a wild card playoff week?
Yeah. Particularly if the number 1 seed is gone, right? Or if it disappears, if it starts to fade, there's no reason to pull them back before the playoffs, like at all. You're going to make it. All the difference is seeding, and to be honest, I'm not sure that makes any difference outside of number 1. So at that point, what difference does it make? Like, wait until he's actually 100% healthy coming off the 11 broken ribs so that when you're in the playoffs, he's going to function again.
Now, some people had some questions. I do read the YouTube comments a little bit, so shout out to all of our
big mistake
YouTube viewers. I like you guys. They did say, well, of course the number 2 seed matters because you get home games. Now, your point has been that the home games don't matter as much in the NFL these days. However, my dome analysis all the time, not that the Saints can't win on the road. They've shown that they can win on the road. That's fine, other than last week. But for Drew Brees to have success, just the baseline of what the quarterback's going to do, he does perform better in the dome. He plays better. In coming off the rib injuries, I think you want him indoors. So there is value in the 2 seed or the 3 seed or the ability to play an indoor game, even if you're not getting the bye. If you're the Saints, maybe compared to other teams, not as much. Like the Bucs are an outdoor team, and they've actually played better on the road a lot of times. So certain teams, it might not matter. But I think for the Saints, it still matters. Like, you want the comfort of the dome. So they need, I think they need to win games. What's their best bet now against Kansas City? If you guys want to hear our analysis on can anybody beat the Chiefs, that's part of the PFF NFL Daily from earlier this week. You can go and binge listen to all of them. Can anybody beat the Kansas City Chiefs? Can the Saints beat the Kansas City Chiefs? And what's that going to take this weekend with the Taysom running the show?
Right, with Taysom Hill at quarterback. It's going to take that game that I keep talking up as like theoretically possible, but just never even comes close to happening when Baltimore face the Chiefs, right? This idea of actually ball control, chewing the clock, just taking an insane amount of time every time you have the ball, right? Every Saints drive needs to be a 12-play, 9-minute drive where you just chew up the entire clock, and Kansas City doesn't have the ball very often. And then if your defense steals a possession, forces them out once, right, makes them punt the ball, suddenly you can like swing the entire half in your direction. And then you do that twice, you won a game. You do it once, the Chiefs blitz you for 28 points in the fourth quarter, and it didn't matter. But these are the margins of facing the Kansas City Chiefs, as Miami showed last week.
I will say, I think lost in the loss.
Lost in the loss.
Lost in the whole mix. We'll talk about Jalen Hurts in a minute. Another PFF Daily segment was on Jalen Hurts and how he didn't actually throw the ball all that well against the Saints. The Saints have done a good job against opposing passing attacks this season. They've held, Tom Brady has really struggled against them. They've held pretty good quarterbacks down. Matt Ryan has had massive struggles. That passing attack has not fared well against the Saints. The Packers had success earlier in the year, but the Saints, since the first 3 or 4 games, have been really good defensively against the pass. Of course, the Kendall Hinton game, but that doesn't count. They were good stopping the pass last week. I don't know, how how much success are the Chiefs going to have against this Saints secondary in their defense that has played well overall? So lost in the loss against the Eagles is the Saints D is still legit. So they could keep it tight against the Chiefs.
Yeah.
But it's in the dome, Sam. So Mahomes is going to throw into Tyreek about 80 yards.
But that's why I think the key is that ball control offense, right? Just limiting the amount of time the Chiefs have the ball, because if you can steal, you don't need to like shut them down, right? You don't need to cause that offense to have a disaster of a day and limit them to, you just need to be able to stop them for a drive or two if you can execute. Like if your offense can chew up a ton of time and score, all you need to do is to have your defense show up for one or two drives in the game, force the Chiefs to punt, to kick it away. And if you've taken enough time off the clock, you are in good shape. Now, I think the Baltimore Ravens have always been better equipped to do that than the Taysom Hill-led Saints, but it's the same theory, right? I mean, put it this way, I don't think they can win or even hang with the Chiefs if this gets into just an insane shootout. So that has to be the only game plan, right? It's the only thing that could work.
If we come out of this with a Saints victory, it's going to probably be because of that. We're going to come out saying
or
Sean
turnovers,
of course,
absurd turnover luck bouncing in their direction.
Turnover luck, or hey, Sean Payton had a great game plan. Taysom Hill executed it. They held the ball. They had those 15-play drives, cut down on a couple drives for the Chiefs. Anytime Mahomes plays indoors, though, I'm like, man, this is what you kind of like open up an extra 10 to 15 yards of turf that needs to be covered, especially with Tyreek Hill.
It is interesting, though, that this is only a 3-point line, because when you look at it, you're like, I mean, wow, how do the Saints hang with the Chiefs in this, along with everybody, right? And it's Vegas at least thinks it's close. I
think that's why my point is people sleeping on the Saints defense just a touch. Just because, they lost to a rookie quarterback last week. Yeah, I think that there was an 82-yard touchdown run. I think they're just sleeping on the Saints D just a little bit. There was a lot of Chiefs talk on the PFF Daily. So Travis Kelce has been incredible this year. We talked about him on the Daily today. Go check that out if you guys haven't subscribed to the PFF Daily. I like to tell you, just pause the podcast really quick. Go click subscribe. I think you're going to like it. It's a little bit more quick hitting, one topic. We go back and forth. We get 10 minutes on the Offensive Player of the Year today and why Travis Kelce is you almost talked me into Travis Kelce on the show. So go check it out. But I still think Chiefs are the best team in the NFL. The 3-point spread, I'm going to lean Chiefs here. We might see fireworks with Mahomes, Tyreek, with Kelce, what they can do. I am interested to see if the Saints defense does keep it close. But again, keeping it close is like the Dolphins did a nice job of keeping it close last week, and you still give up 30. So I'm expecting 30 again from the Chiefs against the Saints here. And it's going to be tough for the Saints to match that the other way.
Exactly.
All right, let's go to the Philadelphia Eagles now, who we had talked about, at the Arizona Cardinals. So where do you think the buzz is on Jalen Hurts? What are you getting? What vibes are you getting from Jalen Hurts' first start here?
Oh, I think it's high. I think people were already pretty enamored with Jalen Hurts before he ever saw the field, and I think the way him, making some big plays with his legs, not taking a sack, there's a few things that are there to like, and of course winning the game unexpectedly, all feed into that narrative. So yeah, I think there was already a lot of buzz surrounding Jalen Hurts anyway, and I think it only went up after that game.
So another one that we talked about on the Daily, Jalen Hurts, his first performance and what it means. The PFF passing grade was low. I mean, he had a 40 passing grade. It was the second lowest grade from any Eagles quarterback this season, of course, behind Carson Wentz, who had started every other game.
Who was the 5th best grade in the NFC East that week.
Right. So the buzz is probably a little bit too high. The point I wanted to get to was that Vegas, so we're haters because of this generally, right? For, being the wet blanket of reason after one, win. Vegas has Arizona by 6.5.
Yeah.
So the narrative is that
haters.
What's that?
Haters.
They're haters as well.
Yeah.
Vegas, not the Raiders, the
bookmakers.
The bookmakers. So they're not buying in either. The narrative is that, the Eagles look different and everybody played better and, Miles Sanders has made better. Everything was better. And there are parts of that we'll talk about. But bottom line is people still see the Cardinals as a better team no matter who the quarterback is, and 6.5 is a pretty big line.
Particularly when Arizona hasn't been playing that well.
Right.
Like if this was earlier Arizona when they were coming off a couple of their peaks this season, you'd be like, okay, that makes some sense. This is Arizona who have shown some vulnerabilities over the last few weeks, and Vegas is still liking them almost to the tune of an entire touchdown against the Jalen Hurts led Eagles. And I think it makes some sense. Look, I don't want to dump on Jalen Hurts and say the guy has no shot. There's no future there. There's no possibility. But he didn't throw the ball that well in his first start. And when you look at the number of things they did schematically to kind of, on one hand, take advantage of his superior running ability to Carson Wentz, on another hand, kind of not play real offense, like all these kind of weird trick plays with inverted veer, all the kind of stuff you can only do with a special athlete at quarterback, but you can't make a whole offense out of. And typically you can't do them for any kind of long period of time because they're like shock plays. They're surprise plays to a defense. It's like, oh crap, we weren't expecting this to come out of the woodwork, but it's like it's a play that's been around since the 1930s. If you show it to them a few times, they know what they're doing, right? So yeah, week one of the Jalen Hurts offense was designed well, it functioned, and he did a good job of executing it. But how long does that last? What kind of grace period do you get with that before defenses just clamp down on it?
Well, my broken record statement all year, that is, first off, I think building an offense around Hurts' skill set, which is more of a good thing than a bad thing. But the floor of the offense, the same thing I've said about Kyler Murray, Taysom Hill, the floor of the Eagles' offense is higher because, like last week, when Hurts didn't throw the ball well, he did rush for over 100 yards. We had the Miles Sanders 82-yard touchdown run where if you look at the linebacker, just peeking into the backfield, just enough that gets Sanders into the secondary, makes one guy miss, he's off for 82 yards. That Hurts does bring that to the table. And I'm not trying to hate on him either. I'm more just trying to say, don't look at one game and make declarations for the future. I would say this about anybody, particularly when, and don't tell me that he was great when he, was a good runner and wasn't a good passer. So I think he's got a chance to improve. I think there's a world where Hurts is going to play way better from a grading standpoint, and the stats aren't going to show it, and we're going to be talking about the other end of it. But I think the Eagles are tighter than a 6.5-point underdog here. I think the Hurts factor does tighten up the matchup here. My question is this Eagles offensive line that's been beat up and depleted, and they got the great Hassan Reddick on the other side after his 5-sack game last
They're
week.
Also missing a lot of guys in the secondary, which I think might be playing into that line. Philadelphia's secondary is pretty beat up right now. Arizona has passing weapons. They should be able to have this high-octane, endless scoring offense. The problem is we just haven't seen it happen that much this season. Kyler Murray hasn't, taken that huge step forward as that type of quarterback. His biggest steps forward have been as a runner, and that's evaporated since he picked up the shoulder injury. So
got back to it a little bit last week.
Yeah, but I guess the bottom line is certainly the line. Vegas expects this to be Arizona's passing attack taking advantage of Philadelphia's lack of players in the back end, and I could see that happening. Certainly,
I could absolutely see that. I think Arizona's, they lost a little luster the last few weeks, but they're still very much in the thick of it. I think from an off-season discussion standpoint, the Eagles are going to be fascinating, man, because I don't think they've made a ton of bad moves. We'll talk about them later on the show, by the way. Benjamin Solak from, he's an Eagles guy, right? And he's with the Draft Network, and he knows the Eagles inside and out. So we're going to talk more Eagles later in the show with him. But I don't know that they've made a ton of bad moves. He might disagree. But I think that's the challenge with team building sometimes is you do a lot of things that are right on paper and they just don't work. Like Darius Slay was the right move on paper, and that hasn't worked out for the Eagles, plus the million injuries that they've had.
We're months away from crowning Howie Roseman as the best GM in NFL history, and then his quarterback falls apart, and suddenly, along with everything else, along the offensive line, the secondary, everything in Philadelphia fell to pieces, and now it's this is the worst contract ever. How could a guy sign this?
I'm looking forward to discussing that a little bit later on. So here's my take. 6.5 seems rich. I'm taking Philly to cover. I like Arizona to win, and we'll have a little bit more Eagles talk going on. Who do you think? Who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I think I could buy that. What's interesting is the entire NFC East has suddenly become interesting, right? They're all live in these games. Like Philadelphia, Arizona a couple of weeks ago, you're like, no shot, Arizona, easy win, forget about it, next game. Now it's all right, I can see a way that Jalen Hurts, this offense still functions. They don't make as many mistakes. Arizona hasn't been firing the way we know they can. They could snatch this. Similarly, the other games in there, Washington, suddenly the entire NFC East is actually viable again.
You're so sad.
Yeah, I'm disappointed that that's true.
Your hopes and dreams just destroyed, of NFC East just being horrible going into the playoffs. All right, let's go to the primetime Cleveland Browns, man. They put them on primetime. That's what they do, and deservedly so. The Cleveland Browns at the New York Giants. It's Sunday Night Football. We screwed up this week, Sam. We screwed up on the PFF Daily. We made a mistake. Okay. We didn't cover the Browns and Ravens the day after on the Daily. We're gonna rectify that because we haven't had a chance to discuss Poop Bowl or whatever you want to call it now. The Lamar, Baker.
He claims it wasn't. He claims it wasn't. It was nothing untoward. It was just cramps.
Now what it reminded me of course, was the time that I took the time out to discuss the food poisoning incident of the 2007 Nashua Pride and how I was right at the center of poisoning my teammates.
Day that will live in infamy.
Yeah. I forget which podcast we did. There was sometime this offseason where you actually gave me the floor to spend a few minutes telling that story. We got to dig it up because I think it was worth it. But that was a similar situation where our 300-pound closer, our pitcher, had to sprint across the field to get off, to get to the locker room because, as he said, Estomago no bueno. So I had flashbacks of all of that. The thing that was crazy was Lamar comes back out like as soon as McSorley goes down. What did he just ripped the IV out and was just like, I'm in. Let's go. I'm not waiting for this thing to finish. I got to go.
He was on the way already, right? Like at the point where it's like, okay, seriously, Trace McSorley's out here. It's not going well. You need to be back pretty quickly. I think he was, working to get out there as quickly as possible. It just happened to time well.
From a Cleveland standpoint, I think the narrative is hilarious that they have a better record than the Ravens, and you're of the mind, and other people are of the minds that this game showed that they could hang with the Baltimore Ravens. Explain that.
Not even necessarily. Baltimore is not the fact. The specific team is not the point. The fact is that the first time they played against a legitimate defense and one that gets creative, Baker Mayfield and the Browns offense imploded and just was a complete train wreck, right? Had no shot. They couldn't win a game based on that kind of performance against a team like that. When they played Pittsburgh, same kind of thing. Aggressive defense, not as creative as Baltimore's, but probably better across the board in terms of talent that they have available to them. Same thing. Cleveland, absolute train wreck on offense. Their 3 worst games on offense have come against the 3 best defenses they faced, which is fine. But when you get to the playoffs, those are the teams that stand between you and a Super Bowl or any kind of run. So no amount of beating up on crappy defenses is going to change the ultimate story other than, okay, now you're actually going to get to the postseason. But what is going to happen when you get there? Are you capable of even being in a game with any of these teams that have already blitzed you off the field so far this season? So for them to come back, and I don't even care that they lost at the end, for them to have that kind of performance on offense against Baltimore's defense, knowing what we know about the first time that went, I think that's really encouraging for this offense. They showed that they can play a game fundamentally well against those teams. Baker Mayfield didn't have a disaster. It was a really bad interception, but outside of that, Baker Mayfield played pretty well. So I think it's encouraging, even though they were the better team on paper based off record alone.
Yeah, it's not. I don't think it's not a crazy take. It's not a crazy take, but it is just funny to me that the Browns are still ahead of the Ravens in the standings, and we're viewing them through that lens. But I think that's kind of like the nature of the NFL too, is that the Ravens were the first place team. They get a first place schedule. They've had to play more difficult teams. They've had to play, they had to play the Chiefs early on and things like that. So that is why the standings change a lot. That's why the NFL surprises us year over year.
They're also coming from different directions in terms of perception. So it's always there's always going to be like a crossover period where you're not quite buying it. When a team that you thought was really good goes past a team that you thought was really bad in terms of like standing or just general percent. There's always going to be a little bit of a lag period where you're like, well, they're probably going to bounce back at some point, or it's going to reverse. It's not quite what we're looking at.
My point is that what if the difference in the Ravens and the Browns is legit? Like the 3 of the Ravens losses came to the Chiefs, first place team that they had to play, the Titans, first place team that they had to play, and the Patriots, first place team that they had to play, that the Browns haven't played. Right? So, they played the Titans, but they had to play.
Destroyed them.
They did. So 2 teams. Anyway,
The Patriots would be an interesting one, though. If Cleveland had to go up against that kind of defense, that'd be a great matchup.
My point is that Baltimore, that like the little differences in schedule sometimes might make the difference here, to where we might still believe that the Ravens are a better team despite a different record from the Browns. I'm with you though I'm encouraged by the Browns offense, and I want to view it through a positive lens for the Browns because, you know me, weather guy and indoor guy, the weather has affected their offensive numbers. They played in some of the most ridiculous weather in the middle of the season, and since that point, they've been excellent. And since OBJ went down, whatever the narrative is that you want to create, we've seen Donovan Peoples-Jones essentially become a better deep threat. We've seen Jarvis Landry and Rashard Higgins, despite his he had officially 3 fumbles in the game because of the laterals at the end, but 2 real fumbles in the game. Despite all that, you know, a solid possession guy. They use the tight ends well. I like the way the Browns offense is working.
They put up like 1 million points, and they had a bad interception from Baker and back-to-back fumbles from Rashard Higgins. Like, they threw the ball away a lot for a team that racked up a ton of points. Like, that offense is firing. It's really difficult to stop. And, I mean, the thing I tweeted was, I don't care if they win or lose at this point late in the game. You don't want to play that team in the playoffs. And I know their defense is giving up a ton of points. Doesn't matter. You do not want to play a team that is capable of winning in that many ways on offense. And
that's the key.
And with a quarterback that whatever flaws he has, again, terrible interception, he will stand back there and sling it 1 million times in the game if he needs to, or hand it off. Like, Baker Mayfield will go down swinging in a way that, again, I don't want to face that team if I'm in the AFC playoffs. It's
going to be a great battle against the Giants. That's who they're playing here. Because if you look at
Freddie Kitchens' revenge.
Oh, yeah, so explain what's happening here.
Jason Garrett has COVID.
Giants offensive coordinator.
Is on the COVID list. So Freddie Kitchens, who is the tight ends coach, I think, is going to be calling plays for the Giants, facing the Browns, who we called plays for last time. And it went
for Colt McCoy, former
about as
Brown.
badly as it could possibly have gone.
For Colt McCoy,
yeah,
former Brown,
yeah,
for the Giants.
What if he learned? What if he's like gone back and figured it all out? I see what I did wrong here.
He was good in 2018 calling plays.
Yeah.
Let's just say the times we've seen Freddie call plays and not be the head coach have been good. When he had to be the head coach and he was trying to call plays, it was not good. I'll just say that. But the Browns' offensive line against this Giants' defensive line, the Giants are just loaded with big old tough to move interior defensive linemen. The Browns love to run the ball, and left guard to right tackle, if you guys have premium stats 2.0, just looking at those grades, Joel Bitonio 86, JC Treader 78, Wyatt Teller 93, Jack Conklin 84. Across the board, the Browns offensive line has been fantastic this year. So I think that battle is going to be great. But for all the positive we've been throwing at the Browns, or at least I've been throwing at the Browns, you have to. It still comes down to their defense, right? They didn't have Denzel Ward the other night. They couldn't stop anybody. That back seven, I think, has been just a ticking time bomb, essentially, this entire season. And the one thing that's probably going to end up holding the Browns down.
Yeah, I mean, it is a problem, but to a degree, I don't know how much it matters when you look at the teams that are in the AFC that they're going to have to go through, right? Whether it's Pittsburgh, who right now their offense is the problem, so that's helpful. If your defense is struggling, facing an offense that's having issues is a great tonic. Or the Chiefs, who are going to score anyway. Like, it doesn't matter if your defense is pretty good; they're going to put up 35. So if your defense is crappy, what difference does it make? You're going to be in a shootout with them.
Because you can put up 50.
I mean, I don't know that they're making that much difference to the Chiefs. The Chiefs are going to score however many the Chiefs are going to score, and your ability to impact that on the back end between bad and middle defense, I think, is marginal at best. Your only shot to impact that is from middle to like outstanding defense. So the Browns, if they face the Chiefs, will be in a shootout. We've already seen them in a shootout with Baltimore. Pittsburgh, as I say, struggled. They blew Tennessee out of the water. Indianapolis is interesting because that was the team, right, that gave them some problems. But like, they're not a fun matchup for any team in the AFC, even with that defense.
Yeah, I mean, when you have Myles Garrett up front, he can wreak havoc against this Giants pass blocking unit too as well.
What do you do if you're the Giants with quarterback? Because they kind of need to win games because they're still technically in this NFC East
as in this, like right now?
Yeah. but they rushed Daniel Jones back. He couldn't move, and he got sacked a million
Jones
times.
looked like he had issues. Do I have posture issues again? Just tell me. Just tell me what to do. We're very professional here. Very professional here.
That's right.
You guys, I need a full-time cameraman on me here.
It's a personal preference. Don't worry about it.
I think you might have to roll Colt McCoy here. Daniel Jones got sacked 5 times last week by Hassan Reddick alone. Now, Colt McCoy came in and got sacked a couple times too. The Cardinals were getting after it.
Right.
But Colt might have a better shot behind a rough offensive line of the Giants. Jones holds the ball forever. I mean, obviously the big playability is there.
Yeah.
It still comes down to me calling Daniel Jones Nick Foles, right? No matter how hurt he is, he's willing to make plays under pressure and throw the ball down the field. He's been awesome throwing the ball down the field. So maybe one-legged Daniel Jones, who's at least going to chuck it and take some chances, is your best bet, but it also is your most likely scenario for maybe getting crushed.
Yeah, and again, whatever about Hassan Reddick's outlier game, if Hassan Reddick can do that, now Myles Garrett's coming.
Oh, he's going to have 12 sacks.
Yeah.
If Reddick had 5.
Olivier Vernon's been playing. Like they've got some pass rushers. Whatever about that defense being bad overall, they have got some pretty formidable players up front if you're struggling to protect your immobile quarterback.
All right, Cleveland's favored by 5 on the road, Sunday Night Football. I think they cover this.
Yep.
I like the Browns.
They're good for it.
Look at us being all pro Browns here. Do they have any, really quick, do they have any little letdown coming off of crazy, put everything into it, Monday Night Football game against your division rival Ravens? Do they have a little letdown here?
No, because I think they'll take positive things from that game, even though they lost. I honestly think that's the takeaway from that game is, hey, we were 32 points worse than this team in week 1, and now we're as good as them. Okay, we lost, but it was, we were there.
All right, we're going to get through the rest of the slate here. Houston Texans at the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts are favored by 7. We talked about Deshaun Watson on the review pod. Didn't look great last week, but also didn't have – it was his first game with – he didn't have Will Fuller for the second straight week, didn't have Brandon Cooks. It was a different Houston offense without the playmakers there. What's that going to look like? Watson against this Colts defense again.
Yeah, and he talked about, a letdown game for Cleveland. This could be one for Indianapolis. Like, Indianapolis kind of got their season back on track, right? The Browns did them a huge favor in battering the Tennessee Titans. Colts suddenly looking a lot better because of the other results in the AFC. But they're still, they're not out of the woods in terms of this could still go south. And this is the kind of game where, okay, you're a much better team than the Houston Texans, but the Houston Texans have the better quarterback. Okay, the better quarterback doesn't have anybody to throw to, but he's the better quarterback in the game and again has that ability to make plays with his legs that your quarterback doesn't, even if he does play, to the best of his abilities.
Brandon Cooks, by the way, questionable, limited at practice on Wednesday. We'll see what happens with him, but clearly having both receivers down was a huge issue for the Texans last week.
And, I'm not saying it's necessarily something you would expect. Like, Deshaun Watson with nobody helping him out is going to have problems against a really good defense in Indianapolis. But he's capable of the kind of game where if Indianapolis doesn't take this seriously and they're not putting their all into this game, this is one you could slip up against in a game that's supposed to be a win on your schedule.
Rivers has played well overall. I know I've been critical of the highs and lows, but he's got far more good games than bad games. And I just wanted to touch on DeForest Buckner really quickly because, again, we love offseason stuff. We love discussing the strategy, the moves, and all these things. And I thought one of the biggest moves last offseason was the Colts trading the number 13 overall pick, Sam. Yeah. 13 for DeForest Buckner, a guy that needed to be re-signed, was at the end of his first contract with the 49ers. He's not a top 3 interior defensive lineman historically. He's a very good interior defensive lineman. But this year, clearly the highest graded player on their team, 89 grade, his first 90-plus pass rush grade. He had never graded that well. He's a number 6 interior defensive lineman so far this year. Was this the right move, even for the 13th overall pick for the Colts?
And the contract. Like they
and
had
the contract, right? And they had to pay.
Trade that for the privilege of giving him the monster contract
right.
that most people want to try and avoid in the first place. Now, they were fortunate in that they had a ton of money to burn, and it needed burning. So they had to put it somewhere, and that's not a bad place to put it. But, yeah, I think he's played better this season than he ever played in San Francisco, which was a level that was high enough for them to want to trade the 13th overall pick for him in the first place. So you can't look at this in any other way than saying this is a massive success story for this trade. Like there's no way that DeForest Buckner this season is playing worse than they would have hoped he played. Like almost certainly is better than they thought they were getting, and they were happy enough with the guy they were getting in the first place.
And I bring him up because it's always fascinating to me when division rivals play in 2 out of 3 weeks. It feels so unnecessary that the NFL actually schedules things like that. The Falcons actually have to do it twice this year. They play the Saints 2 out of 3 weeks. They play the Bucs 2 out of 3 weeks. It's really weird. But 2 weeks ago, DeForest Buckner had 9 pressures against the Houston Texans. That's his season high. So just keep an eye on him. He's the guy I'm watching. We're going to give you 1 or 2 things to watch in each game. I like Indy here. I think, honestly, my assessment is going to come down to Brandon Cooks being on or off the field. I think it's that simple. Without Will Fuller, you need something for Deshaun Watson, or he's going to get sacked 5 or 6 times again if he's got nobody to throw to. So I'm taking Indy as of now, and we'll see what happens. If we know that Cooks is going to play, maybe I'd lean Houston to cover, but I think Indy wins this thing and they continue.
Yeah, I'm taking Indy to win, but I think this is a very real opportunity for a slip-up if they're not paying attention.
All right, Seattle Seahawks at the football team. What do we got for a number here? I just pressed the wrong button. 5.5.
Yep.
For Seattle. My question on the Seahawks here, what do we make of the Seahawks? Do we just throw out last week's game? They win 42-3 against the Jets. 40-3 against the Jets. And, you know, Seattle had been trending down, and Russell Wilson hadn't been playing well, and then it's just, you know, he had his 4-touchdown game and threw the ball pretty well against the Jets, but it's the Jets. And what do we make of Seattle going up what has turned out to be a really good football team defense here?
Yeah, it was the game that we said they never had, right?
Yeah, they have
Russell
the weird
Wilson
game.
and the Seahawks never cover like a 14-point spread against anybody, right? So why would they do it this week against the Jets? And then they go up and like hang 40 on them, and it never looks even remotely in doubt. And that's 40 with Marcus May making one of the interceptions of the year, you know, one-handed pick in the end zone to stop a touchdown. Like they weren't even close to troubled against the Jets, but it was the Jets who are miserable. Washington, on the other hand, are trending in the other direction, who took control of the NFC East despite Alex Smith, A, playing badly, and then B, leaving the game with a calf strain. It didn't matter. They still took control of that division, thanks largely because of that defensive front that is nasty. And Seattle has got some problems up front on the offensive line. They've been forced into the bench a little bit, and the starting 5 wasn't exactly the best group in the NFL. So Washington's defensive line could certainly have an impact. And quietly, like, the back end of this defense has been doing a pretty good job as well. Like, it isn't just the front 4, you know, the defensive line that's getting all the ink. The back end of that defense is actually playing pretty well as well.
That, to me, is one of the surprises of the season, not the point about the defensive front. If you just look at all the highest graded players on the football team, it is all those former first-round defensive linemen. Jonathan Allen is having a career year. Chase Young has not been perfectly as advertised. He's been very good. He hasn't had the same type of dominant rookie season that the Bosa's have had, or Myles Garrett or anything, but he's good. He's really good. He's going to be awesome. Montez Sweat has stepped up. Their highest graded players are up there, but they've gotten a really good year out of Ronald Darby on the back end. Jimmy Moreland's flying around the field as a slot corner, and Kendall Fuller. Like, they're not bad compared to what I thought they were going to be in the secondary. So I think that helps the football team at least keep it close. My question is going to be, is it Alex Smith or Dwayne Haskins? Because if Alex Smith is out there, he'll manage the heck out of that game.
Does it actually matter?
It does.
Does it?
Yeah.
Alex Smith hasn't even been playing well since he came back. Like, it's an amazing story. Comeback player of the millennium. It's phenomenal, but he's not been playing that well.
Until last week he had been. He'd been solid games.
But Haskins was playing kind of solid before they took him out. Like, Haskins hadn't actually been playing that badly, but they benched him because it sounds like he wasn't taking the job seriously at all behind the scenes, and they weren't winning, right?
Haskins is the guy that the stuff that Alex Smith makes look easy, I think Haskins makes look difficult. Short area stuff and just, you know, quick decisions over and over and over again. I like Alex Smith better. I think they have a better shot with Alex Smith. Now, Dwayne Haskins, can he make a few more downfield throws and, you know, maybe give the football team a chance? Perhaps. But I think Alex Smith gives them a more consistent chance, I would say, than Haskins in this particular week. But I'm looking forward to what does Russell Wilson's 2 weeks removed from scoring 10 against the Giants. The Seattle offense scored 10 against the Giants. Before that, he had come off of just an okay game against the Eagles, okay against the Cardinals, and 2 rough ones against the Bills and the Rams. So I think this is huge for Wilson right now in this offense going up against the football team's defense and the Rams defense over these next couple weeks to kind of prove that they're going to be back on track and ready to go for the playoffs. The Jets game did nothing for me to elicit confidence in that team going forward. So that's what I'll be keeping an eye on. Also, with this Washington defensive line, if Russ is off and if he's a tick slow, this is one of those games where he gets sacked 6 or 7 times. Like, it gets sacked a ton. And so there's the potential that this is one of those awkward Seahawks, 19-12 games or whatever it ends up being, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a pretty big line given what we've seen from Seattle recently outside of that Jets game and what we just saw from Washington. Like, they are trending in the right direction. This is a team that can they still get to 500, or they can at least get to 7-9 and win that division. I'm kind of surprised the line is as big as it is, given that we haven't really seen Russell Wilson consistently hit those peaks for week on week.
All that said, I'll lean Seattle, but I would probably lean Washington to cover with Alex Smith at quarterback.
Same.
Seattle's going to win, though. New England at the Miami Dolphins. This is the first time the Dolphins have been favored, 37 once out of the last 38 games or something ridiculous.
Wow.
Here's what I want to say here, right? Just to make this a macro level story here. It's interesting. The Patriots play the Dolphins and the Bills the next 2 weeks. And after 20 years of dominance in the AFC East, these next 2 weeks might be that, remember for years it was at some point Tom Brady's going to be gone. At some point Belichick's going to be gone and someone else is going to win the AFC East or take over. It feels like these next 2 weeks could potentially be that Dolphins statement game, Bills statement game. But the Bills have made many statements. They've already beaten the Patriots, but if they sweep the Patriots and if the Dolphins win this game and really officially push the Patriots out of the playoff picture, is that this statement game that the AFC East is now officially away from the Patriots. It's a whole new division. It's not necessarily just going to be the Bills every year, but it's the Bills, the Dolphins are in the mix, and it's over for New England. I feel like we're in that 2-week period here where that could be the narrative in a couple weeks. What do you think?
I could buy that. To me, the interesting part of this, though, is just this New England versus New England South matchup, right? Bill Belichick versus Flores, the master and the apprentice, right? Mm-hmm. And is this a passing of the torch, right? Has Brian Flores taken this defense outside of New England, maintained it at the same level, and he's now sitting here with basically a better roster? So they win the game. The mantle has been passed from Bill Belichick to the apprentice. Or is this like the plot to Rocky V, right? Belichick has one last game.
Wait.
What?
Big fan of the Rocky series here.
Yeah.
No one
it's
has
a bad
watched
movie. It's a
Rocky
bad movie.
V.
No, everyone's watched it, but only once because it's bad.
Right, so nobody remembers
Okay.
Rocky V and Tommy Gunn or anything. Nobody remembers.
Yeah, there you go. See, you remember.
That's all I know.
You
is
know.
Tommy Gunn.
Don't lie to me. You know what I'm talking about.
Not like I know Rocky IV, though.
No, that's true. But, okay, Rocky V, right? Rocky retired at this point, becomes the teacher, the master to Tommy Gunn, who was actually a boxer himself,
Tommy
right?
Morrison.
Yeah. He becomes successful. I don't even remember why, but they fall out and they end up in a street fight, and Rocky kicks his ass, right? One final swing from the master to defeat the apprentice, even though at this point Rocky's like a 50-year-old man, and the guy he's kicking his ass is the world heavyweight champion at this point. It's absurd. It's a terrible movie. It's a bad plot, but that's what we might be looking at this week, right? Brian Flores, Tommy Gunn, coming for the old man. And instead, Bill Belichick slaps him down in a street fight. One last swing of the punch.
Would a Rocky movie review work for the PFF Daily? Is that worth a good 10 minutes or so?
No, it's not. No, there's nobody wants
Rocky
to hear
V.
a review of Rocky V.
No, not Rocky V. Like 3 or 4 or something.
Oh, okay.
1, 3, or 4. Any of those.
There's
That's
a lot
not
of mileage in 3.
I'll give you it's a good analogy. I think it worked. I think there's just I think there's some overarching narrative type stuff. There's a Rocky V parallel. It's a really interesting game. Also, weird stuff happens in Miami where they're favored by 2 right now over the Patriots. The question in New England is Cam Newton the future? I mean, he's on a 1-year contract, and they obviously haven't locked him up. Do they just slow play it into the offseason? Does Cam Newton earn the job over these next few weeks? He's been playing hurt reportedly these last few weeks, although I think that's a part of playing quarterback is staying healthy and being able to perform.
Particularly for him. I mean,
right.
this is what he's been dealing with for like the better part of his career.
You can't use excuses for the injuries. You can't
be like, this isn't real Cam. Well, when does real Cam show up and how long do I get him for? Because he hasn't been here by that definition since like 2017, 2016, which isn't really doing me a lot of good now, is it?
I think in all this, though, I might lean New England because I still don't have a ton of confidence in Tua.
Because you watched Rocky V. That's why.
Yeah, you convinced me.
You saw it.
Rocky's going to win. Rocky wins the street fight
here.
You
don't beat Rocky.
It's just the rookie deal. Belichick's D against rookie Tua. I'm buying into that.
Right, but on the other side, do you have any faith in Cam Newton and his no receivers can get open against Brian Flores' defense?
No, because in week 1, though, they ran the ball like crazy. And I still think...
Which is presumably what they're going to try and do again.
Yeah, and I think that New England, it's a different world. That was ages ago. But New England still has that ability in any given week to go run for 200+, and Cam throws the ball 20 times, and it doesn't really matter because they play good defense and they can run the ball. They have that in them in any given week. So I'm leaning New England to cover and win this game, even though crazy stuff does happen in Miami.
As I'm just writing to you so that I remember this, what does New England do with Cam Newton should be a daily topic.
Oh, yeah, it absolutely should. We'll hit on all the quarterback situations and the carousel and all that fun stuff. We have a Dak one I think we're gonna hit soon. So, oh man, so much fun on the daily. Go check it out. Pause and subscribe. Go do it right now. Mm-hmm. Tampa Bay Bucks at the Atlanta Falcons. Bucks favored by 6. Like I said earlier, this is one of those. They're going to play twice in 3 weeks here. So the division rivals have not played each other here until week 15. I think early in the season, if you looked at this matchup, you'd be like, well, look at the Bucks. They've got the Falcons twice in the last 3 weeks. Those should be 2 easy wins. I don't know if it's going to be that easy the way the Falcons in any given week play a little bit better defense. Julio's been banged up. I think that's really affected Matt Ryan's game. Matt Ryan's been all over the place this year with his performances too. So I don't know. Tampa Bay should win this game, but would you be surprised if Atlanta in a division matchup, gives them a good one?
No. Minnesota this season have the 31st ranked PFF pass rushing grade as a defense. They're like 50-something, right? Only the Bengals are worse, and the Bengals basically have no pass rushers. They're worse than Seattle, whose pass rush is Jamal Adams, the safety. So Tom Brady had all day to work with last week. Didn't have any problems, essentially. This week, like Atlanta, they're not the 85 Bears or anything, but they can rush the passer. They have a top 10 PFF pass rushing grade. They're 8th, just ahead of Denver, just behind Tampa Bay. So that is at least enough to test you and put you back in a situation of, well, what did we learn over the last few weeks? Or did we learn anything and just play the Vikings?
I think the Falcons, yeah. So you mentioned the pass rush and everything. Grady Jarrett on the interior. Also, breakout player this year, Foyesade Olakun.
Nicely done.
Olakun. The linebacker, I wrote him up before the season that he could be a really nice complement to Deion Jones, and he's developed into that. He's been a solid player. So you've got a couple decent linebackers. Deion Jones is awesome when he's at his best, but a couple decent linebackers patrolling the middle, and Keanu Neal's bounced back this year, and there's just massive question marks at corner for the Falcons. That's the reality of it. If they could shore that up this offseason, they might have a quicker turnaround maybe than people think.
A.J. Terrell has been maybe the best rookie corner, though. And
oh, right. So that's a start.
That bar is not high, right? Rookie cornerbacks this season have been getting lit on fire by and large. But if you're going to pick the best one, like A.J. Terrell is probably in that conversation. Has at least got a pretty good case.
So from a Bucks perspective, I think like if you're a Bucks fan, you're just like, all right, Falcons, Lions, Falcons, finish strong, offense. Be good, be the playoff caliber offense that people expected all the time. You win out, you're 11-5, and you're just right there in the thick of the playoff race. So I think that's what Bucks fans should be expecting: 3 wins over these next couple weeks. But you got to go out there and do it. And they took care of business last week against the Vikings. I think they'll be okay here. But the story is all of their special teams unit plus Ronald Jones are in COVID protocol, I believe. So who's punting, who's kicking, who's doing any of this stuff? Or is this the day where it's like, you got no kicker, you got no punter, Bruce, you got to go for it all the time.
2 every time.
By the way,
no punts.
Going back to the Ravens-Browns game, that was a little view into the future, I think. 4th down decisions, going for 2, down 7, all these different things that happened. And it did lead to a massive shootout. I think when you have coaches on both sides making good decisions that are going to lead to more points, over time you're going to get more points, and you're going to get maybe a little bit more exciting brand of football. My point is, if the Bucs have no special teamers available, do they end up doing something like that where they end up being a little bit more aggressive and accidentally score 45 points because of it? You know what I mean?
I also think that facing Atlanta twice in a few weeks is actually a useful thing for them, because again, the idea for them is just make it to the playoffs, right? And make it to the playoffs having figured out all the problems, because this season for the Bucs has been about troubleshooting this offense, right? You bring a Hall of Fame quarterback together with a really good offense on paper, and you expect it to just work 100% right out of the box, and it doesn't. So the entire season has been about troubleshooting, figuring out where the problems are, and fixing the code, or whatever the continuing analogy would be, but just figuring out where all those issues are and ironing them out. And that only works if you are presented with problems that highlight them, right? So Atlanta are capable of presenting them with problems, and facing them twice in a couple of weeks is almost certainly going to show them something that they wouldn't have seen otherwise, right? Because, no team comes into the same game 2 weeks later with the same game plan. So you're going to see something different from Atlanta. And between 2 games, you would think at least one of them will show you something that you need to fix before you roll into the postseason and face the best teams in the NFL.
It's an interesting view on that maybe you figure out how to adjust. You get to practice adjusting. The one concern I have from a Tampa Bay offense standpoint, they came out of the bye last week, and a lot of times in the bye it's like a reset, right? And especially late in the season, you have a chance to work on something. And they came out and they felt as run heavy as ever, early down run, and then if they were going to make an adjustment and win on the edges a little bit more with running more motion and more play action and more of the things that we feel like are better for creating offense, I almost feel like they reverted the other way and said, coming out of the bye, we got to establish the run even better.
I don't think that's what they're not going to find the secret to woke offense over the course of the next few weeks. What they're going to do is find the answers to specific things that teams are throwing at them. And that's why the Vikings,
that part's fair, yeah.
Other than playoff seeding, the Vikings was basically a useless game for them because they weren't good enough on defense to pose them any kind of problems, right? And say, what do you do if we throw this at you? It's going to cause you some real issues because that's a hole in your system right now. The Vikings couldn't do that to them, so it didn't matter.
It's definitely going to come down to handling the blitz.
Right. So
blitz answers.
Exactly, right? And slightly different ways of doing it as well. So, the Saints have been the team that's causing the most problems that way. So it's not that you're going to expect them if they face the Saints again in the playoffs. It's not that you want them to abandon the run more, go more pass happy, make all the 4th down decisions. You just want them to have figured out over the course of the season, when we start blitzing you and take away your deep pass, what is left? Because last time there was nothing. They didn't have anything left. They had dump offs to Ronald Jones out of the backfield, and that's not going to get it done. So, all right, now you've had the whole season to work that out. Did you find an answer, or is this just where we fall down in this experiment?
I think, honestly, the Bucs, if they used Scotty Miller down the field, had the 50-plus yard touch or 48, whatever, the other day, Evans down the field, Chris Godwin and Antonio Brown work in the middle of the field with Gronk. They have the answers there. It's just deploying them properly. So we'll see how they do over these next couple weeks. I like Tampa Bay to cover in the Dome the 6 points that they're favored against the Falcons. What do you think?
I like them to win.
Falcons keep it close?
Yeah, let's say they cover.
All right. Chicago Bears at the Minnesota Vikings. Vikings by 3 here, Sam. You hate any time the Vikings are favored or anybody says anything good about the Vikings.
Just anytime there's a large spread in a Vikings game feels crazy. When they were favored by double digits against anybody, it was madness. And when they were in the tank, I think, by big distance to a bunch of teams, I think it's kind of nuts. This one makes sense. The Vikings are what we thought they were, to quote Old Denny.
I took a little. I had flashbacks of 2018. I think I mentioned this the other day. Flashbacks that Trubisky came out of a game with good stats and just an average grade. You know, he was okay. I thought it was, but the narrative there, or the story coming out of that, is the Bears created good offense. I thought they did a really nice job.
It was 2018 all over again.
Yeah,
and you know, even down to the absurd Matt Nagy sound bites. It's for real. His transformation, it's different this time. Matt Nagy is Joe Rogan, right? You know the way every promo that Joe Rogan runs for the UFC, this is the greatest fight in fighting history. It's like, well, so was the last 20. Like, they can't all be that's not how this works. So you switch off, right? Matt Nagy is basically, that's every time it's like, oh, it's different. I've never seen Mitchell like this. This was the best week of practice he's ever put together. He's going to come in here on fire and just make some plays. And then coming out of the game, oh yeah, he's a different guy. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. This is not the same guy we saw last year. It's like, it is. It's the same guy. We know who he is. We're not buying what you're selling. Stop it now.
Yeah, I think we see a worse version of Trubisky in the Bears offense. You know, I like to, no matter what Minnesota's trotting out there defensively, and it's been a season of growing pains. There's no doubt about it. But I like the way the rookie corners are trending, and they didn't play poorly last week against the Bucs. I mean, they weren't on the field a whole lot. They were okay. Gave up a couple big plays in there, but Trubisky's got a passer rating of 72 against Zimmer and the Vikings through his history, and I think, you know, Zimmer's done a great job against division quarterbacks not named Aaron Rodgers. Now that could just be because they're the division, but like, he's done a great job against Stafford. He's done a good job against Trubisky for whatever it's worth, and I'm buying into the Trubisky statistical regression this week, and I like the Vikings in this one.
Yeah, I mean, he had a passer rating of 127 last week, but he had a PFF grade of 66.
Yeah, I credit Nagy. I mean, they rolled him out a ton. There was yards after the catch from guys like Allen Robinson making some plays, and the screen game was really good. You got a bubble screen for a touchdown in there. So yeah, there was some good stuff. Cole Kmet showing flashes of being like that, you know, the big burly tight end that's just a pain to tackle in the middle of the field. I think his prospects in, you know, the coming years look pretty good. So I like a lot of things that the Bears are doing. I like Minnesota in this one though.
Yeah, I think you have to. I mean, Chicago is certainly helped by the fact that Minnesota can't rush the passer at all. So Trubisky should have all day to do whatever it is they want to do with him. And their secondary is at least vulnerable still. I agree they're trending in the right direction. Those young guys have been getting better. But he made a point earlier in the season that, you know, those guys are in kindergarten right now and they need to get to the master's degree course, right? You're like, well, that in kindergarten to master's degree in 16 games feels like a kind of a steep ascension. That's what we're seeing, right? They're not, I don't know where they are in that step process, but they're not at master's degree yet. They're still, you know, maybe second year of high school.
They're going to pick that up in the offseason with a little online Zoom course.
Oh, you got it, right?
And they're good.
Get the Zoom going.
NFL's going all virtual offseason.
Remote learning.
The people love it. The NFL's going to love that, not having to be in person. Anyway, I'm taking the Vikings. You?
Yeah.
Buffalo Bills at the Denver Broncos. This is one of your Saturday games, back-to-back Saturday games we'll talk about here. Bills favored by 6.
Mm-hmm.
And should that be even more? Denver's offense showed what they should have been showing last week. That makes sense? Like all their playmakers, KJ Hamler making big plays, Jerry Jeudy double moves, getting open. That was nice.
Yeah.
But Denver's absolutely depleted in their secondary. Can they stop Cyborg Josh Allen?
They lost 3 guys to ACL injuries in the cornerback position in like a couple of weeks. Yeah, that feels harsh. Now you're going up against Stephon Diggs, like just all of the receivers that Buffalo has, and Josh Allen. That's a really tough ask. Plus, it also kind of assumes that Drew Lock is going to repeat what he did last week, which is by no means a guarantee. I agree. I think 6 is generous to Denver.
I think another PFF Daily topic, end of the season into the offseason, what do the Broncos do with Drew Lock? I think it's a fair question because last week he's had 2 of his best passing grades in games this year. One was the Patriots game in week 6 that never showed. It didn't show up in the stat sheet, and then last week it very much showed up in the stat sheet. His second best passing grade of all time in his 2 years, 74.4 for Lock. Not the thing you're looking for as far as like your second best of all time. However, we've only seen about 1,000 snaps of Drew Lock. We've seen essentially a season's worth of play from Drew Lock. He hasn't been good. He's been below average. He hasn't been Blaine Gabbert, move on immediately horrendous either. But again, the nature of the NFL and what else is available, I think, is going to be the challenging component here. Do you want to tie yourself to Drew Lock developing, especially when you have all these nice playmakers here to play with?
He's shown you enough that you could easily talk yourself into saddling yourself with Drew Lock for a number of years going forward. But like the NFL now is about making the right decision on quarterbacks, not necessarily the obvious points like drafting the right one, but it's about figuring out when to cut bait and moving on to a different option and gambling, or when to gamble that actually this guy is going to turn it around, right? So Josh Allen is a good example, right? After 2 years of Josh Allen, you could make the case that, hey, look, maybe we should start looking for alternative options going forward. And then year 3, Josh Allen explodes, and it's like your faith in him was rewarded. But are you going to get the same thing from Drew Lock? Can you go 2 more years expecting the payoff, or are you going to go is he just going to be one of those guys that ends up at Trubisky's level where the payoff never comes?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we'll dive in even further at some point. I like Buffalo to cover the 6 in large part because, Denver's secondary is going to have some issues here down the stretch. They're going to have issues against the Bills here, and the Bills, just the all-around package that they're bringing to the table. The defense is capable. Allen, when he's playing well, they're tough to stop. So I'm taking the Bills here to cover. I know you are. You signed the apology form, so you're all in on that.
Yep.
Another Saturday game is the Carolina Panthers at the Green Bay Packers. Packers by 9 here. And, we trashed the Panthers defense on Monday. Somebody brought, hey, they shut out the Lions a couple weeks ago. That was an anomaly compared to what the Panthers have done defensively. Packers by 9, is that enough? Or is it your point on the Packers always seem to get a lead and then let people stick around?
Yeah, it might not be enough, but I certainly wouldn't be confident in betting over that line for Green Bay. Every time I watch them, it feels like they should be just destroying teams in a way they're not. It looks too easy for them when the offense is functioning. The pitch and catch from Aaron Rodgers to Devontae Adams, they've got weapons now beyond him. Whether Marquez Valdes-Scantling you can't always rely on actually hauling in the passes that are sent his way, but Alan Lazard, Robert Tonyan has been an important part of it. Tonyan like Funyun.
Tonyan, right.
So they've got some weapons. Aaron Jones out of the backfield is one of the better receiving backs in the NFL. They've got players that it should be easier than it is. Given how easy it looks when they get it right, why is it not like that all the time? And that's my concern with them, is they don't seem to I keep wanting to say they don't seem to do what the Chiefs do, but the Chiefs aren't really doing that either at the moment. So I don't know what it is, but Aaron Rodgers and Green Bay's offense doesn't quite instill the level of confidence in me that it should, given how potent their primary connection is.
If you're into MVP races, which everybody is, Aaron Rodgers has a better grade than Patrick Mahomes as far as PFF grade goes. PFF WAR, wins above replacement, factors in a grade plus, volume and your supporting cast and all that stuff. Also gives Aaron Rodgers a slight edge over Patrick Mahomes at this point. So to earn the title for number 1 in PFF WAR, you got to play well over these last couple weeks. So that's a part of this whole mix here. Rodgers playing unbelievable this year. He really is, and it's an incredible turnaround. I expect the Packers absolutely to win, to finish the season strong. They have the number 1 seed as of right now, and I don't know if the 9 is enough. I think they do run away with it in this one. So I'm taking Green Bay to win and cover at home. I'm disappointed I don't see snow in the forecast, though.
Wasn't snow in Denver's forecast either. That doesn't explain that line.
It's very disappointing. No, I'm just saying in general. I'm just
disappointed
to not see snow in Green Bay.
I checked whether it was a snow issue that was the reason for that line in Denver not being as big as you thought it should be.
All right. Here's a big one. San Francisco 49ers.
Just lastly, this, if it holds up, will be Aaron Rodgers' best graded season.
Oh, absolutely.
Better than MVP 2011. Like, as good, better than he's ever played before.
Yep. San Francisco 49ers at the Dallas Cowboys. Steve Young versus Troy Aikman. It is going to be, Deion Sanders is on one of these teams. We know that. We don't know which year it is. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah. Is it?
Nick Mullins versus Andy Dalton. in reality. So
this is one of those games that looked better on paper a while ago before everybody got hurt.
I would also argue it looked better back in 1993.
Yeah, no, it did. Yeah.
Or 94.
Or, anytime
or
in the
any
90s,
other
really.
year in the 90s. The 49ers in Dallas.
Yeah.
This used to be the hot rivalry, man. This used to be like the thing.
But even just, when the schedule came out, this would have looked like a pretty tasty game. Dallas
it did.
On its way to, a Super Bowl. They're with a hype team. San Francisco in great shape, what they're doing with Kyle Shanahan. Then everybody gets hurt on both teams. And now you're left with Nick Mullins, Andy Dalton, no offensive line for Dallas. Oh, it's just...
Give me one thing to look for in this game. Because I'll give you my thing. I want to see Dallas defensively, because my whole thing is when teams are out of it, pretty much. Are you ever out of it in the NFC East? Never really out of it.
They're still in it.
My whole thing is I want to see who's a part of the future all the time. Who on this Dallas team is going to be a part of the defensive rebuild, right? Who's going to be a part of that? They've just been poor this entire season, so I'll be keeping an eye on the defensive side of the ball for Dallas in general here.
Watch Trent Williams. Left tackle for the San Francisco 49ers is having his own Aaron Rodgers revenge tour. He's got a PFF grade of 90 at the moment. It's not quite the best season he's ever had, but it's up there with the best seasons he's ever had. And if you just throw on the tape and watch some of the blocks he's executing against people and just absolutely burying people, it's fun. Like in this 2020 world of, get off my lawn, the game's gone soft NFL, like where you're not allowed to hit a quarterback hard, otherwise it's a penalty, and all the other things that, people rail against because they're too soft. Trent Williams can still go out there and just destroy human beings in a way that in pretty much any other encounter physically on a football field now is a flag. But it's not when it's an offensive lineman against a defender of some variety. And certainly the last few weeks, he has had a bunch of those highlight reel plays.
Man, I love watching Trent Williams play football. San Francisco's favored by 3. They're going to cover that at Dallas. I like Dallas here.
They should cover it, but I don't know anymore.
Shanahan against the Dallas defense.
What defense?
Exactly.
Sorry.
I'm taking Dallas to cover.
Okay.
And win.
Wow.
Andy Dalton.
No, he had his revenge game against Cincinnati. He's got no reason to be vengeant against the 49ers.
True. That's true. I like Dallas here, though. Detroit Lions at the Tennessee Titans. This one's 10.5 for the Titans. The last 3 games all have double-digit spreads, so forgive us if we don't dive deep, okay? Just 4. Forgive us. Last 4 games. What did I say?
3.
5 games. Well, 3 after this. So last 4 games have double-digit spreads. No Matthew Stafford likely for the Lions. As I read, I mean, initially it said he wasn't going to play, and now the quote is he has no expectations for Week 15. Does that mean he just doesn't know what to expect of himself, or he doesn't expect to play?
It's
quote, no expectations.
I would have read that as doesn't expect to play, but I mean, you can certainly phrase it. You could certainly read into it a different way.
Expectations are like a baseline. Like I have no baseline, but it could end up anywhere.
I mean, I have no expectations for whatever Cincinnati quarterback is going to be playing, and yet somebody's going to be doing it.
That's true. I would say no expectations in the 10.5 line for the Tennessee Titans bodes well that Stafford's not going to be the guy. I thought Stafford over the last couple of weeks, was in a bit of a showcase, a little showcase territory.
Oh yeah.
If the Lions want to try to trade him and move on from him, showcasing the goods a little bit the last few weeks, chucking it around the field and seeing if the Colts or the Patriots or the Broncos and all these other teams might want to be a buyer at some point. So the Stafford showcase the goods tour is taking a bit of a hit here, and I think the Titans going to roll here, aren't they?
The most important thing in this game is that Chase Daniel is going to have his career snap per dollar figure destroyed. This is going to put like a torpedo into the side of the greatest galleon to ever sail the NFL seas. That man is a hero, and this is going to ruin all of his statistics.
You love all of that stuff. You love NFC East, playoff iterations. You love Chase Daniel's snap per dollar.
He's earned like $4.5 million for every touchdown he's thrown in his career.
The further he moves down on the list, that means the further up our friend Bruce Gradkowski moves.
Right, and he's already top 10.
Bruce is top 10.
Yeah.
And look at him. Bruce is up till 4 a.m. on Sunday night grading quarterbacks.
Yeah, and he's not getting any more snaps anytime soon.
No more snaps. I mean, look, if a couple of the guys trending here in the NFL, maybe Bruce needs a shot here.
Yeah.
I need a shot.
All right.
But look at him slumming it with us over at PFF after being on that top 10 list and moving up. Anything else you're looking for in this Detroit-Tennessee game? Detroit's not only
I'm
overmatched, but they're depleted in their defensive side as well.
Right. I'm curious to see if Tennessee's defense can patch itself back together. It's been a train wreck for a while. They need to, now you've got Chase Daniel coming to town. If you can.
Well, just like they had the Jags last week. That
right.
helped.
But if you can't sort yourself out when you're facing the Jags, then Chase Daniel, you're about to roll into the postseason in theory. That's going to be a problem.
Look, the Titans have shown flashes at times this year, but they do need to figure out on their back end. And then another PFF Daily topic this week, we talked about Derrick Henry. So if you're a Titans fan or not, just go check it out because we actually brought it up where the analytics dorks that's supposed to say running backs don't matter. But we did ask the question if Derrick Henry does actually matter. Is he above and beyond? Is he worth maybe not every penny, but at least worth investing in at the running back position? Go check that out on the Daily this week. 10.5 is pretty steep, but man, Tennessee and their explosiveness on offense, I don't think it's that crazy. There's got to be an upset in here somewhere, though, right? Maybe Detroit.
Not in the last games, surely.
Not in the. Maybe Detroit. I'll take Detroit to cover. They're going to stay close. They'll keep it close.
Okay.
Maybe Detroit keeps it close. All right. Pittsburgh at Cincinnati, Monday Night Football. This one's 12.5. Now, if Joe Burrow was playing, I would have fired up the Cincinnati Bengals upset alert from a few weeks ago.
Drunk Steve again?
Yeah, exactly. Joe Burrow, franchise-defining game and fourth quarter comeback and all that stuff. I'm just not expecting that this week from Brandon Allen. And so Pittsburgh's going to feel like they're back on track after losing 2 straight here.
You would hope so, right? And if the offense still doesn't fire this week, now you've got some real issues because Cincinnati's defense has been a get-right game for pretty much everybody all season long. Pittsburgh needs to get right on offense. They've been struggling. Something needs to change on a fairly basic level for them. If it doesn't happen this week and they still find problems, that's a real crisis situation for the Steelers.
Let me say this about the Steelers, right? And I wrote about this a little bit in my QB column this week. The game that Big Ben played against the Bills it was his lowest graded game of the year, right? 53.7. But it's not an egregious game compared to other games that he's played this year. He has 4 other games of 60 below, 60 or below. He has played in that range, so to speak, including the last game against the Bengals when he had 4 touchdowns and no interceptions. The same pick 6 that he threw to Teron Johnson on Sunday Night Football against the Bills, he tried to throw to Jesse Bates in this game. So Big Ben, I feel like this does need to be a game where, all right, show that you can distribute, throw the ball with a little bit better accuracy, better decision-making, maybe a little bit more zip on the ball. So I think it is a big, referendum, so to speak, on what Pittsburgh can do offensively here. So
and the receivers have to catch the ball.
Yeah, that too. Pittsburgh's got to catch the ball. I like Pittsburgh to win, and I'll say that they do make a statement on Monday Night Football in our hometown of Cincinnati and cover the 12.5. My goodness, these spreads.
Based off what I saw from Pittsburgh recently, I'm not picking them to cover a 12.5 point spread against anybody.
Well, there you go.
Except the Jets.
2 more games here. Jets at the Rams. Now, this is fascinating because the Rams are favored by 17 as of record time here. We do not see numbers that big in the NFL unless you have the 07 Patriots, the Chiefs, and what was the Chiefs-Jets a couple weeks ago? It was only 10, wasn't it?
10?
9.5, 10
was
a couple
it?
Weeks ago? Or was it closer to 3 scores? I don't remember. Anyway, my point is, usually when you see the monster spreads, it's when you have Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Patrick Mahomes at quarterback. This is with Jared Goff and the Rams offense, but it's so big because the Rams defense is the best in the league as far as EPA per play and pass coverage and all that stuff, and the Jets is the worst. So it's interesting that the spread's so big, but it's really triggered by the Rams defense. The Jets only scored 3 against the Seahawks last week. Not a good defense. What are the Jets going to score against a really good D? Are they going to score negative points against the Rams?
Negative points would be an achievement.
Maybe you throw a pick 6 or something. Does that count?
So the over-under for this game is only 43.5, which says a lot of what you're saying.
And if the Rams just won 24-3 against New England, if this game was 31-3, I wouldn't, or 24-3, again, I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets scored 3 points once again this week. Any chance the Jets cover this? Of course there's a chance. 17 is huge.
Yeah, I mean, there is a chance. It's up to 17.5 now, by the way. So it's heading in the other direction. There's a chance, but I don't think. I mean, the Jets game last week felt like they'd given up, right? For the first real time this season. Like, I was actually impressed is the wrong word, but surprised, I guess, that it had taken that long for the Jets season to just completely implode upon itself and them to completely give up and stop playing, essentially, given all the mess that's happened with that franchise this year. But last week was the first week where it looked like that was the case. And that doesn't seem like the kind of thing that this late in the season you come back from. It's like, no, we're done now. We're checked out. See ya. I don't think you come back the week after and suddenly like shock the Rams to the point of like competent play on both sides of the ball. So yeah, there's a chance, but no.
Do the Rams play the Seahawks the next week though, with the division on the line, presumably? So there could be that little bit of look ahead factor in there. Little look ahead factor with the Rams. Anyway, yeah, the Rams win. I'll say the Jets keep it somewhat close and cover. I don't know why. Just because when you have that level of extreme, it doesn't just always play out that way. But look, the Rams defense is legit, and they're going to be dangerous in the playoffs.
Yeah.
When they play the Packers or the Saints or the Bucks or the Seahawks again, it's going to be a good matchup. And they're the best defense in the NFC by far, or at least at this point, since week 3 especially. And nobody's really figured them out. So that's going to be tough. Check out that Rams defense in this game and see if the Jets can score negative points. Let's wrap it up. Jacksonville Jaguars at the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens are favored by 13. I think because this goes back to the scheduling thing, is the feeling about the Ravens all essentially triggered by schedule? Because I think
part of it.
They play Jacksonville, they play the Giants, and they play the Bengals.
Yeah.
They have 5 losses. They should win all those and go 11-5. And if you came into the season and said you're going to go from 14-2, which is tough to sustain, to 11-5, did you really regress a whole lot, or did you have a couple bounces go the wrong way, plus a more difficult schedule? Are you largely the same team as the 14-2 team as last year?
Yeah, I mean, I think they regressed significantly. I don't think it's all down to schedule, but I think that they dropped out of the postseason. They're still out of the postseason playoff standings as of now, but it's always looked like they were going to jump back in based off the way the schedule is going to pan out. And right now, I think the most likely team they'll leapfrog is Miami, right? Miami's final 3 games are the Patriots, the Bills, and the Raiders, any of which they could lose. They could, in theory, win all 3. But whereas the Ravens, we think, will probably go 3-0 during their stretch. So they have a good shot of leapfrogging into the playoffs with that 11-5 record. It would be pretty surprising if you go 11-5 and don't make the playoffs in the AFC. Possible, but very surprising.
Yeah, they'll be all right.
Yeah, but even if they do, if they make it 11-5, I think they're still a significantly worse team than they were a season ago. So I don't think all of the narrative is driven based off that schedule. It's just that they were never quite as bad as it looked like it was heading.
Yeah, I agree that there's definitely been some regression. We've talked about that plenty, right? They've been different. The other night was against the Browns. The defense, as we mentioned, was banged up, but impressive offense from the Ravens. Lamar was headed for a JT Barrett game, Sam. He was headed for a game where he hardly completed any passes, but was just ridiculous on the ground. Don't mock.
Still isn't a thing.
It's going to be a thing.
That's never going to be a thing.
Well, maybe it'll be a Jalen Hurts game at some point for our NFL listeners. See if Jalen Hurts does this or a Taysom Hill game. If those guys keep it up. But the offense was really good the other night for Baltimore. So maybe they do finish strong. My point is, I think over these next 3 weeks, it's a narrative change few weeks for the Ravens, right? People are going to come out of these next 3 weeks feeling much better about the Ravens maybe than they did a few weeks back. Now, I made that same prediction about Seattle finishing the season like that, but then they lost to the Giants.
Yeah.
And they lost a little luster. But sometimes I like to look ahead and tell you what you're going to feel in 3 weeks. And that's my prediction for the Ravens. You're going to feel good about the Ravens in 3 weeks, and it started the other night, but continues this week against Jacksonville.
Well, the other night was the big one because that was not – I mean, that was one of the ones that we weren't even sort of giving them credit for, right? It's their final 4 games are against the Browns and then 3 teams they should win. The Browns, you could say they should win, but the Browns are pretty good. So they got that game out of the way and got a win, and now you get the 3 quote-unquote easy ones.
What do we think about the 13 points here? Can Jacksonville keep this close?
No. I mean, they don't have enough firepower. Like, they can't do what the Browns did in terms of
Minshew. If you got Minshew a quarterback, maybe.
No. The man almost fumbled the ball just running in a straight line the other week.
Yeah, but he almost doesn't count for fumbles.
They can't do what Cleveland did in terms of putting up that level of points and hanging with them. So if Baltimore's offense comes to play again, like Jacksonville are going to be
Jags cover.
Blown out.
Jags cover.
Okay.
Unblowoutable.
No, they're not.
For all of these last few games, Detroit, Cincinnati, Jets, Jaguars. It's that point of the year. Looking for the future. Who's going to be a part of the rebuild? So put some good stuff on tape, fellas, if you're battling for your job. All right, that's it. Week 15 in the books. As I've mentioned many times throughout the show, it's not a shameless plug. I have taken no shame, actually. Yes, in plugging the PFF Daily. You should go check it out.
So it is a shameless plug.
No, it is. It's
okay.
shameless.
No.
Go check it out, PFF Daily. I think you're going to love it. If you love us on this show or you hate us on this show, you're going to love or hate us on the Daily. The biggest thing is that you just review it, give it the old 5 stars, drop us a note like many people already have, and tell us how much you really, really love it. So go check out the Daily. Check out the Chris Collinsworth podcast featuring Richard Sherman. They're doing a great job over there as well. The entire PFF NFL or just podcast network in general. Go check it out. Week 15. That's it, man. We'll be back Monday morning reviewing all of the action. Enjoy Saturday, Sunday, and Monday football this week.
We'll also be back in about 3 seconds for Benjamin Solak's interview.
Oh, geez. I did the recap too early. And we're not going to cut it and fix it because we're not doing that. All right? So just pretend I didn't do that. We're coming out right now. We're back already. You missed us?
This is how professionalism works.
Yes. Like somebody else would say, we're going to cut it.
Right. You can scratch the surface or you can dig deeper and get to this.
No.
That's where we are.
I screwed up. I got to wear it.
You
guys have to hear it. Benjamin Solak time. I can't wait. We're going to dive into the Eagles, some draft prospects, and all sorts of fun stuff. So listen to this Benjamin Solak interview, then pretend I didn't recap the show earlier, and then I'm going to come back and recap the show once again. And that's what we're going to do. Let's go to Ben. All right, we are joined by Benjamin Solak. Appreciate having him on. He's at Bleeding Green. Do you guys hate it? Does Bleeding Green, haven't they trashed PFF through the years? Eagles fans in general.
Who hasn't, Steve, is the real question.
Who hasn't?
I'm sure it's happened at least once. Not by me, but by others.
I remember all of it. Bleeding Green and the Draft Network. Happy to have Benjamin on. We'll talk a little bit of Eagles and a little bit of draft. So how you doing, man? How's the season going despite the Eagles not being so hot?
Yeah, it's funny. I was full on ready to watch the first prospect, to just like sit down, Jamar Chase, get excited, and then Jalen Hurts became the starter, and it's like, all right, well, we're doing this for the rest of the season. You know, you kind of mentally shut yourself down on it for the Eagles, and now you're back in it. So, I mean, it's been wild, as all Eagles seasons are, and if this ends with us playing for the division in Week 17, I won't even know. I'll probably be excited then, but thinking about it now, it drives me nuts.
What are your thoughts on the whole Hurts thing right now? So what are your thoughts on his first start? How well he played? Was this the right move? All of that kind of rolled into one. Where do you stand on Hurts, Wentz, and where the Eagles are at the moment?
Yeah, the only thing wrong with the move is it took him too long to get here. You know, you reached the point at which continuing to start wasn't helping Wentz a month ago. You know, it was clear, like he had that moment against the Ravens and against the Steelers where it seemed like maybe he was getting out of this. And then he just spiraled right back down. And at some point, you have to say, all right, if our priority is starting him long-term, is fixing him, this isn't helping. And maybe a benching will, and maybe it won't, but we got to try something else, you know? And so to me, it was a little bit too late. You know, you're going to get 4 games of Hurts, and what you're going to sit down and say, with this information, we can make a conclusion about how well he's going to develop. That's not enough of a sample. So you kind of got a foot in both ponds here, which frustrates me. But you put Hurts out there against the Saints, and the reaction is immediate, both, you know, emotionally from the team. There's no doubt that the guys just felt different. You know, like there was a renewed hope. You put a different guy back there. I was like, all right, we're resetting. We're hitting a different button. Let's see what happens. And you get a couple good plays, and kind of that energy starts to pick up. But also just schematically, play-wise, you just weren't taking sacks. You weren't punting from your own 5. You weren't giving the defense short fields. Like, we talk about complementary football and what that means and what that doesn't mean, and it's a bit of a buzzword, but when the quarterback's not actively limiting the defense or the receiving core or the offensive line, it's complementary football kind of at its base level. So Hurts, who's so impressive in his poise, in his calmness, and never get too high, never get too low, as he always says, he was really well suited to take a really difficult situation against a good defense, make the best of it, and then bring home a win, just kind of a cherry on top. So he's fun to root for. He's fun to engage with. I don't know if we're going to finish these 4 games and say he is the guy, he's not the guy, what the plan is. So I wish they had given this a little bit more intentionality to get a good eval on him. But now that he's here, he's our guy, man. He's our baby.
What do you think happened to Carson Wentz? Because, you know, even if you don't think that 2017 season was who he was going to be long term, that was always a little bit of an inflation over where he was going to be because of all the how heavily it was built on sort of unsustainable things, you know, third and long play, all those kind of things. Like, he was a hell of a lot better than this. So how do you go from Carson Wentz that we thought we knew to a guy that literally needed to be benched just to have any hope of saving him as a long-term option?
Right, yeah. Sitting down and asking, like, how did we get here is always a bit of a experience. You're just kind of stunned, right? This is quite something. And I like what you say. You know, you watch him in 2017 and you watch him now and you say, okay, I understand the regression. That's understandable. That was expected. That's fine. That only explains so much. You put, you know, eyes on the film, as it were, and you just say, all right, there's something else. Like, something happened here. You know, this is more than just regression. So to me, there were kind of 2 events. There was the fall from 2017. He clearly wasn't the same athlete that he was. 2018, he had the fractured back and he wasn't moving that well. You know, he came into camp this year a little bit heavier, right? He put on some muscle mass. He wasn't moving as quickly. So you have the fallout from the injury and just the regression. Reich is gone. DeFilippo's gone. He's not performing as well on third down. The coaching staff around him isn't as good. So that occurs, and that's event 1. And then event 2 is kind of, you know, question mark. But it happened somewhere 2018, 2019, 2020, where whatever it was, you know, emotionally and psychologically, people have talked a lot about how he feels about backup quarterbacks and he has too much control in the organization and there are no coaches that have his ear and can really establish him when he's doing something wrong. People say that he has too much control over the week-to-week game planning and that he chooses the plays he wants to run and Doug can't influence him. So all of those things, whether it's that, whether it's mechanical failures, right? And he's with quarterback coaches and he's not getting right. And during the offseason, he's trying to come up with new ways to be accurate and that's not working, whether it's wide receiver chemistry, right? We've got all this stuff that's happened over the last couple of years and something in there, a combination, an amalgam of a couple, but something in there took a quarterback who at his baseline, like, could manage risk and throw a swing pattern and just took that away from him. And so he just has no concept of risk management and pocket management. Every play needs to be 50 yards down the field. You need to hold the ball for 5 seconds. Or he's getting rid of the ball immediately to his first read when it looks bad and you can't put an accurate ball on him. And it's very difficult to look at a quarterback like that and say, easy explanation. You know, there's too much that happened there. So to me, there was the regression, and then there was something else. And the work for the coaching staff, whether it's Doug Peterson's or another's, is going to be to take him back to building block 1 and say, what throws do you like? Can you hit them? Good. What other throws do you like? Can you hit them? No? Why? And we're just going to have to start from this is a rookie quarterback who's never been in your offense, who you've got to take him back literally to 101. Because if you try to build on anything from this year, you're building on a rotten foundation. It's not going to work.
Yeah, and that's why I think it was the right move to bench him, right? Because there's no way it was getting better. It was deepening whatever problematic path he was headed down in the first place. Do you think it's possible to fix him? Do you think you can actually piece Humpty Dumpty back together again? Because I can think of quite a lot of quarterbacks down the years who have gone from being good to being broken, but I can't think of many that have been put back together again from that point.
Mm-hmm. Fix? It's tricky, relative term. How good can I get him? You know, and how much will that be for me? My concern is even if you get him back to a functional point, what happens when he reaches adversity again? Oh, so you clear the room of quarterbacks he doesn't like and you get all coaches that work with him well. And then somebody's going to get hired somewhere. You know, the team's got to start planning for something else. A wide receiver is going to leave in free agency. And what happens at that next point? The cost of fixing Wentz in terms of players you might not develop, coaches you might pass over, money you might spend, time you might spend trying to make this contract work is daunting. It's scary. They're going to try. And because they're going to give an effort, I do think it is possible. You know what I mean? Like he's for everything that Wentz is, he's a good dude who wants to be good at quarterback. You know, he's not a sour guy. Like he doesn't want to be playing poorly. He wants to be playing well. It's going to cost a lot, and it's a narrow shot. So this is really, the end of the action movie here. Everything's on the line. We only got one chance at this. This is Mission Impossible. So I do think it's possible, but you're going to really take a swing at it, and it could leave you back pretty bad over the next couple of years.
The whole story is just really fascinating because the comparison I've made recently was if you looked at Lane Kiffin's career path upside down in reverse, it would make more sense. Like Lane Kiffin started with the Raiders, and then he's with USC, and before you know it, he's down at Florida Atlantic. And it's like if this was Wentz's rookie season, and then you built on it with 2019, and then 18, and you peaked at 17, and just forget 16 for a minute, but you peaked at 2017, it would make sense. But going almost in like reverse order, I think makes it more challenging to even find. Like Andrew Luck hit a 2015 lull and got out of it. He was a little injured, something was off, but he got out of it. There's just not a whole lot of people to compare to that have gotten their career back on track, which makes it really challenging. I want to ask you about the Eagles as a team, though, because over the last couple of years, I've thought they were going to be good. I thought that they've done a good job. I thought that the front office, for a team that looked like it was going to be tough to sustain success from a team building standpoint, made a lot of the right moves. You draft the future left tackle a year early. You draft speed. You have what should have been on paper one of the best groups of playmakers over the last 2 years. Going into the last two seasons, I think on paper, receivers plus tight ends, they're top three in the NFL. It hasn't played out like that. So from a team building effort, I thought they've done a good job, and a lot of things have gone wrong. How do you feel like they've done from an overarching team building standpoint?
Yeah, loaded question. Because definitely you look at a lot of it and you go, we're maximizing a winning window. This is good. It's like taking Wentz back to the one-on-one building blocks, right? Fundamentally, when you look at a general manager in a front office, you got to bring talent into the building, right? That's number one. And then when we talk about winning windows and cost management and restructuring contracts and extending, you got to get talent into the building. And obviously the free agency and the draft. And when you check out what Roseman's done, a lot of free agency has been accomplished with the idea of, all right, this talent is going to be immediately impactful for us. Roseman does not bring in low-level free agents, other developmental guys. We're going to get young guys who have come from other teams. No. Veteran receivers, veteran defensive tackles, veteran secondary players. We're going to put these guys in. They're going to play well in week one. And a lot of that has to do with Jim Schwartz, the defense coordinator, who just does not play young guys. But that's because they've wanted to attack this window with Wentz. All right, so you're bringing in these veterans. Sometimes they hit. Sometimes they get injured. And the Eagles have dealt with a lot of injuries to a lot of veteran wide receivers, veteran free agents, veteran defensive tackles over the last couple of years. Okay, well, if you've drafted well, you can survive this. And for many, many years, going back to 2016, the Carson Wentz draft, when Roseman, took over the front office back from Chip Kelly, we remember that power struggle. You've looked at his drafts and you've said, that's good. Maybe should have gone, TJ Watt over Derek Barnett, but it's probably okay. Okay, Sidney Jones and Rasul Douglas, maybe get a corner who looks like he could play in a Jim Schwartz cover 3. Rasul Douglas does not, but we'll be all right. Okay, Dallas Goedert, a tight end in the top 50. We already got Zach Ertz. It'll be fine. It'll work. And you just kind of keep going through all those drafts, trading up for Andre Dillard, a developmental tackle. You've got Jason Peters. He'll develop. It'll be good. And all of a sudden, you're here with these injuries in 2019 and 2020, and you go to look to your youth, and you don't have anybody. They have struggled to get high-level contributing talent in the drafts. Louis Riddick's favorite stat is that the Eagles have not drafted a Pro Bowler since 2014, besides Carson Wentz for one season. And Louis Riddick likes that stat because he does not like Howie Roseman. And that's the reality, is that Roseman has struggled to bring young talent into the building. And so you can work in veteran free agent additions and developmental young talent as long as A, you got a good medical staff that will keep those veterans healthy, and B, you got a good developmental coaching staff that will get those rookies ready to play over 1 to 2 years. The Eagles had neither. So it was held together with a lot of onlys and buts. And when that's just candies and nuts, right? That falls apart pretty quickly. And so a lot of it looked good on paper, I agree. But you you miss out on some of the extraneous stuff, and it starts to build up, and then the house of cards comes tumbling down in 2020.
I think I'm guilty of maybe liking the drafts more than I should have, but one of my draft axioms, so to speak, of that I think we all agree with is draft more, of course. And when you do look at 18 and 19, bringing in 10 players over 2 years is what you're describing right now. And there is so many examples through the years. If you just take a team and you reverse 2 or 3 years and say how many picks did you have? And in a draft where you're allotted 21, did you bring in 21? Did you bring in 30? Or did you bring in 15? And just using over the last 2 years, the fact that the Eagles have in 18 and 19 that they brought in 10 players, just 10 guys got brought in, and then they should be in years 2 and 3, and you don't have the depth. You can literally go back to just how many lottery tickets did you have. So I think there is an element to and they did a better job last year, 2020. You pay dividends maybe in a couple of years here when you have more volume, but I think that's an interesting part too. Is that part of that win now strategy that you're talking about? They won in 17, and then in 18 and 19 you only draft 10 times. Yeah,
explicitly at the combine, Roseman was asked trading up, and he said, we got 10 picks, we want 10 picks. We made 10 picks over the last 2 years. We need these swings at the bat, right? And it's directly to that point. He acknowledged it as, we view our windows as 4 years, 17 to 2020, 4-year windows. We need to start getting young players in and kind of recycle this. And that's what's very attractive about Roseman as a general manager. The acknowledgement of windows is very important. Philadelphia fans are understandably frustrated with Roseman right now. But the Bears and the Texans still aren't making, a lot of picks. And it's because some of the issues acknowledging their windows as a team, right? And so that acknowledgement of windows is very valuable. And so he really wanted those 10 picks. Again, you cycle back to identifying talent, and you look at a team in desperate need of wide receiver with Jalen Reagor, John Hightower, and Quez Watkins all offering about 4 touches a game combined, and most of that's coming from Reagor.
But they wanted to get faster. They wanted speed. They said they wanted to get faster this offseason.
So we're going to get speed. And then it turns out those guys aren't good at the catch point. And it's like, well, these are the trade-offs, And so the talent evaluation and being able to get the good players in. I mean, the Reagor Jefferson pick is going to get looked at like Brandon Graham, Earl Thomas did for years, for years. Eagles fans already can't deal with it.
But Brandon Graham's awesome, so that's fine.
Right, exactly. We got there with Graham.
Yeah.
Reagor Jefferson's scary.
I'm in good standing with Bills Mafia now since I signed the apology form. Steve ripped up the apology form and may well get his tire slashed on the way back to Boston. Where are you with Bills Mafia? Are you in good standing or are you on the hate list?
No, see, that's the thing is I'm very quiet. I don't say anything. I had Josh Allen ranked lower than any of y'all coming into the draft. I just didn't mention it.
We had him as a first rounder still.
Right.
We still had him in the first.
Still wasn't good enough.
For me, Allen being good is tremendously fun, not only for all the trauma that it causes and the referendums, but also he was undoubtedly wickedly talented. It was just like talking about getting Wentz better. There was a very narrow path in which Allen was going to end up like this. And that's a difficult thing to talk about with a fan base who's currently enjoying him being good and believed he would be good because he's their quarterback. But this was a narrow path, right? When you looked at historically what Allen did in college to what he's doing now in the pros, it was going to be very difficult. So for me, I didn't view Allen as a good bet. I still don't view Allen as a good bet for the information we had at the time. Was tremendous kudos to Allen, Brian Dabble, Brandon Beane, just excellent infrastructure in Buffalo. They did a great job. And with Bills Mafia, I mean, Bills Mafia and Eagles fans, distant cousins. If they weren't putting guys through tables, we would have thought of it a little bit later. So I feel kinship with them.
Would you rather have Josh Allen or Carson Wentz?
Allen. I mean, there's a year ago, we talked about Allen and Wentz as players of similar molds, though perhaps on different trajectories, in the sense that, listen, they were going to make plays. And sometimes that was going to go really, really badly for you, right? We talk about the accepted risk of holding on to the football, right, for more than 2.5 seconds. Like PFF loves to talk about time in the pocket and how that affects the quarterback's play. Allen and Wentz, big bodies, big arms, never think a play is dead in the water. And with Allen, over the first couple years of his career, you were looking at a player who turned out a lot more poor plays than good plays when he was electing to extend. Wentz was largely better, though he was a little bit kind of 50-50. Narratives changed a little bit this year. But it's funny to think about how Eagles fans viewed Allen 2 years ago versus how they view Wentz now, because they make some similar mistakes.
That whole quarterback class has been fascinating over their first few years, right? Because obviously you've got the Josh Rosen just bombed out of the league almost instantly. Sam Darnold been in a terrible situation, and mono and various other complicating factors, and looks like the next one that's got no shot going forward, at least not without a hard reset and a time at somebody's backup. Then you've got the Josh Allen thing, which was like 2 years of what we kind of expected from Josh Allen, and then suddenly this resurgence that nobody really saw coming outside of Buffalo.
Evan Silva, how dare you?
True.
Right.
Baker Mayfield, who was like rookie of the year level right out of the gate, coming off the back of the incredible college performance that we'd seen and graded, then went backwards in a major way, and actually is maybe an example of one of those quarterbacks we talked before who was pretty seriously broken and has started to piece things back together, at least is heading in that direction now instead of the other way. And then Lamar Jackson, who pretty low starting point in terms of accuracy, in terms of what you could expect as a passer, became MVP last year and is now somewhere in the middle this season. What do you make of that entire group going forward?
As Bill, in terms of the entertainment, right? I mean, this was all right. This is going to be one of the best quarterback classes we've had, and certainly, you've got 3 potential playoff quarterbacks there, and you had also, some pretty significant flameouts, and on the entertainment spectrum, both do well for you, even though they're not maybe good for fan bases. Right, coming out, I had Rosen and Lamar as the top tier. I had Baker as like a 1B, and then I had Darnold and Allen significantly lower. That's a good lesson on what has become a reality of quarterback play, I think, in the league now, which is you got to be able to create outside of structure, right? That was Rosen's great weakness. It was, all right, just put Rosen in a good offense. He's going to execute, and it's going to be great. It turns out great offenses week to week, unless you're Kyle Shanahan, tough ask. You know what I mean? It's very difficult. You need to be able to create outside of structure. Then you look at a player like Darnold, who was, he creates so well outside of structure. Yeah, what happens snap to snap? Because sometimes the ball's not getting where it belongs on time, and he's putting himself outside of structure, despite the fact that he's got good opportunities on his first read. And so that balance, that interchange, which, we've had so many good pocket passers over the last 10, 15 years. You look at that 04 class, right? You look at Brady, Roethlisberger, Rivers, Manning, and you look at how they won, what that archetype was. Certainly, with Roethlisberger, you had the tackle breaking and the sack withstanding and whatnot. That mold led us down a path when we're talking about evaluating prospects. It's always the case, right? Now you want hybrid linebackers and hybrid safeties and so on and so forth. So that mold took us down a path, and I think now we're coming to realize more so the value of that mobile quarterback, especially as those players are recruited and developed in college. But so that class is as built, right? I mean, it's as entertaining as they come. Lamar, Allen, and hopefully Baker across the next 10 years is going to be a good time. But development is tough, man. It's like Mark Schofield of the Touchdown Wire always says, development's not linear. And that's the important thing to remember. Like when we see that up and down, year to year, he's MVP, he's not, he was good, he was rookie of the year, now he's bad. Man, it's a quick league and a lot changes. And so development's very tough to keep on a steady line.
Mark's right. I say that same thing. Or else Wentz would be Patrick Mahomes by this point after what he did in year 2.
Exactly, yeah. You'd see Wentz in his second year and go, sweet, we're good.
And that's why the Josh Allen thing.
That's why you're going to get firebombed by Bills Mafia.
That's why I'm not signing the apology form, because it's very linear for Josh Allen, and we'll see if he can keep that up. Anyway, let's wrap it up with this before Sam asks a very personal question. Biggest success or worst whiff as a draft analyst?
Oh, too many on the whiff thing. Success is not as difficult. I'm very tempted to say Corey Davis, mostly because he's been good this year, and I'm so happy about it. That's a big success.
That's my guy.
I watched Corey Davis, Western Michigan, in the snow against Buffalo, come out in short sleeves, and I said, this is the greatest prospect I've ever seen, period. I think it was just
we got to the same conclusion, just different ways.
Yeah.
You went with sleeveless in the snow. I went with, he's just going to get open a lot, but that's cool.
Yeah. No, he's a lot of fun. But I had Godwin ranked highly in that class. I had Godwin above John Ross and Juju Smith-Schuster. I had him as wide receiver 3 behind Davis and Williams. And Godwin was one of those prospects who wasn't like overtly productive at Penn State. He was good. But then you watched his film and you sat down to write what he was bad at, and you just couldn't come up with anything.
Yeah,
so
that's good.
Right. He's a nuts athlete. He's a great blocker. He's all 3 levels: ball tracking, toughness. Like, he was just so excellent. Right. He goes in the 3rd round to Tampa and just kind of sits there for a year, and all of a sudden we turn around and we're like, 1,000-yard receiver. Whoops. Like, when did this happen? He's just so steady. So Godwin was a good one. Oh man. I was really high on J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, who always sticks out to me because he went to Philadelphia and immediately caught 4 footballs in one season, and then that was just it. And it was like, all right, that's not great. So he was a pretty big miss for me. Oh man,
same.
I was low on Marquise Brown and N'Keal Harry in that 2019 wide receiver class though, and you don't want to take pride in being low. Yeah. On guys who didn't end up maybe hitting as well as they should have, but they deserved suspicion coming out, and they were given a lot of run. And those are the 2 first-round receivers, and otherwise tremendous class, and both of them have kind of struggled so far. So they were tricky evals.
Harry especially,
yeah. That was the one where the red flags were on. I mean, you watch him play, and you're like, this guy doesn't separate ever. And then at some point, I went through every single one of his targets in his final 2 years, I think. And you're like, he's got like 4 plays that weren't like schemed open where he actually separated from a defensive back. In the Pac-12 where they don't play defense, like that's just not going to work in the NFL.
Right. Yeah, Harry's not a big surprise, I don't think. So with you there.
We're contractually obliged to ask you what you would like to be when you grow up, given you.
I'm just saying.
Oh, man. It's your job, Sam. Ideally, that's what I'm coming for.
Oh, sweet. Okay, that's perfect because I'm over the hill at this point. I've got a bunch of fan bases willing to write me off. You can have this chair anytime.
Sam, don't make the youth jokes with him.
No,
I get height jokes all the time. It just gets old. It gets old.
It does, but at least like I'll say something and I'll expect it, and so I don't feel it anymore. Like if you didn't know what direction they were coming from, you'd be like, "Oh no, I'm gonna get made fun of. What's gonna happen?" Now it's just like, all right, like I'm gonna be in a video, and people are gonna be like, "Hey, how's high school algebra going?"
He's numb to it.
That's great,
dude.
And
so
people still get like creative with it, which is good.
Yeah. Well, so what's always interesting to me is why the number used is always 12. Because our guy Anthony Tresh gets the same thing, right? You two both look extremely young for your age, and we used to do these what are they called? 3 high safeties videos where Tresh would be part of one every week, and like the first comment every single week his video went out was like, "Who's the 12-year-old?" Why is it always a 12-year-old?
I mean,
puberty time.
Oldest teen word that doesn't have teen. That's all I got for you. You know what I mean? It feels smaller than it is. It's been forever. It'll be forever, right? Like I'll just be doing this, for the next 10 years. I'll be a professional, hopefully at some point.
Eventually it'll swing back in your direction.
Like, hey, what's it like to be in high school? Like, yeah.
Eventually it's going to swing back your way though, right? You're going to be like 45 years old and look 27. Everyone's going to think you're great.
There you go.
That's what everybody tells me, but also nobody, like, I'll also be 45, so I'll feel horrible. My joints will ache, you know what I mean? I won't be able to eat things. Like, that's what everybody tells me. And so, all right, cool, I'll look young.
But on the outside, you look great.
Yeah.
God, we're 45.
So I prefer the advantages now. Like, growing a beard in the winter would be kind of fun.
We're 45 in a few years, Sam. So we'll let you know in a few years when we get to that point. Benjamin Solak, Bleeding Green, and the Draft Network, the senior in high school writer at the Draft Network. Is that right? Is that your official?
Senior college football writer. We ain't evaluating high school yet.
No, you're in high school.
Making an age joke.
Senior in high school. Uh-oh, man, I missed it. Right
me
over the
screwing
plate,
up the
too.
joke.
Mine was better.
Bringing a ton of knowledge to the table, so appreciate that. Go check out all the work, Bleeding Green and the Draft Network. Anything else you want to plug for our millions of listeners here?
I don't know. I mean, I'm very, very pleased to follow up Adam Schefter and Amy Trask. I feel like that's a natural progression, right?
Yep.
You go NFL national reporter, Raider CEO, kid.
It's getting better week after week.
Natural follow-up.
We like to mix. Well, progression isn't linear, as they say.
Yeah, it's not linear. There you go.
Thank you, Benjamin. Appreciate it. We'll do it again sometime.
Of course. You be well, fellas. Thank you.